Staff Sergeant Mark Hatchett. I work with the Calgary Police Service in the Strategic Enforcement Unit, targeting organized crime in the city of Calgary. On April 20th, 2017, members of the Strategic Enforcement Unit executed a search warrant, the 1000 block of 14th Southwest Calgary. And after execution of the search warrant, multiple items were seized with regards to ties to organized crime. Included in the seizure was 83 kilograms of phenacetin, a cutting agent for cocaine, with the sole purpose for that drug is to make cocaine more profitable to organized criminals. Along with the seizure of the phenacetin, Calgary Police Service seized a loaded handgun as well as cash proceeds of crime in totals of over $8,000, as well as a cocaine kilogram press that would have been used to create bricks of cocaine here in the city of Calgary for distribution within the city and potentially within other cities across Canada. 2 people were charged with multiple criminal code offenses as well as FDA offenses, as phenacetin is a drug under the Food and Drug Act. This is a significant seizure in Calgary, and we in the Calgary Police Service believe that this does make a dent in the organized crime activities of drug traffickers in the city at a high level. And throughout our investigation, we've identified multiple organizations operating in the city as well as other cities in Canada that were receiving these types of drugs through distribution from the people that were charged in Calgary. We're very confident that future investigations will stem from this seizure, and we will be successful in the future with prosecution of these criminals and other criminals of the type.
I sure would. Thanks everybody for joining us today. This is an important conversation to be having. So I'm the Chief of Operations at Calgary International Airport. Our involvement, CBSA's involvement, involves seizing barrels of phenacetin last summer. There were 3 barrels that were shipped through our mail center in Vancouver last year, 2 in July, 1 in October, each of them totaling approximately 25 kilograms apiece, all destined to Calgary. We seized them, had them tested for phenacetin, which is a drug regulated under the Food and Drug Act. It's a pharmaceutical that is regulated. It's a pain-killing drug, but it's regulated because of its the possibility that when you take it, it has cancer-causing agents or cancer-causing outcomes. So it is regulated by Food and Drug Administration. So the lab results concluded when we sent the barrels away for testing. The lab results concluded that the substances were phenacetin. So CBSA is on high alert now as a result of some of the fentanyl seizures that we've come across. People trying to import that contraband through our borders. So any white powdery substance that we come across now, we are testing. We handle it as if it is fentanyl until we know differently. So in this case, the white powdery substance was phenacetin. We began to investigate further. We engaged our partners, Calgary Police Service, because this is where the contraband was destined to here in Calgary. The seizure and the subsequent investigation demonstrates our role in interdicting these substances before they hit the street, hit the marketplace. That's what we're here to do, and I'm really proud of our partners for working with us. I'm proud of our officers in Vancouver that interdicted this stuff coming through the mail center. We encourage members of the public to please be in touch with us, the Border Watch Line or Calgary Police Services, if they're coming across these kinds of substances. Please reach out and involve the law enforcement agencies. Our mandate is to keep our streets and our communities safe.
So the barrels seized last summer, those are different barrels than these ones?
Yes.
Okay, so then how were these flagged? How did you know these were?
So we entered into our investigation early part of this year. So our investigation lasted 3 months and targeted the individuals named from the 3-barrel seizure from CBSA. So we targeted those individuals through the Strategic Enforcement Unit, and through a variety of investigative techniques, we identified them as being part of this organized crime ring in the distribution and importation of this drug. And so typically what we do in the Calgary Police Service is we rely on information from the public to facilitate our investigations. And in this case specifically, we use our partner agencies, CBSA, as a strong partner in organized crime interdiction. And this is the actually fruits of our labor. This is what happens. We get the information from them, and it stems and blossoms into a fruitful investigation.
What kind of a value does this have, monetary value?
So we have a street value. We give it $1,000 per kilogram, so $83,000, and that's a very we're going to say a lowball estimate. It depends on the value. It depends on what type of cocaine it's being cut with. So it all depends on market value on the street. And like I say, taking 83 kilograms on the 20th off the street will definitely drive the market up.
Was this stuff, I just wanted to clarify this, so this stuff was in transit from out of country through Vancouver to Calgary, or was this originating in Vancouver, or can you give us a sense of this?
So just to be clear, I think there were 2 seizures of phenacetin. There was the original seizures by CBSA of 75 kilos last July and October. Those were barrels that came through the Vancouver Mail Center from Hong Kong. So we seized those and sent them to the lab for testing, and that's what sparked the partnership with CPS, because they were destined to Calgary. Then CPS was involved in a further investigation and the seizure of another 83 kilos, and that's where these barrels come from.
Yeah, for sure. These barrels came from out of the country, and they were imported into the country through different ports of entry in an attempt to missile the police and try and confuse them. So we had like I say, in-depth investigation for the last 3 months and monitoring the activities of the barrels, knowing when they were going to come in.
Right. Are the individuals who have been charged, are they considered high-ranking members in in this particular crime organization? I know sometimes with certain drug seizures, sometimes they're lower level, sometimes they're mid-level. I mean, can you speak at all to how high in the organization these individuals?
Yeah, I'd love to speak to that. These individuals that were arrested are cogs in a bigger picture. So their sole job and purpose in organized crime in Calgary and in Canada is to provide that super buff phenacetin to make cocaine more profitable for larger organized criminal groups. So their specific purpose is a conduit to other organized crime groups. They didn't belong to one specific crime group, but they had ties to multiple crime groups.
Is it fair to say the men charged first came to the attention of CPS through the original seizure? CBSA is looking at the destination of those barrels, brought and flagged those names and brought them to the attention of CPS?
Yes, that is definitely part of the information that led to the investigation.
A bit of context is how often are you seeing phenacetin over the last, say, 5 years or so, as a cutting agent? Is this relatively new to see this kind of amount?
It's new to see this type of amount. This is a record seizure here in Calgary. Speaking with the amount of weight that was seized, we have seen phenacetin in the past. It is a very typical cutting agent across North America, across the world. It has a moniker of super buff, and there is no other use besides cutting drugs to make them profitable. That's its sole purpose. It was deregulated for use in Canada in the 70s because of its cancer-causing properties. So this is something that we have seen in the past. It is associated to organized crime, but we've never seen it at this large amount of weight.
Can you talk a bit about the cancer-causing quality of this drug? I've heard a bit about the seizures in Edmonton. They've talked about the carcinogenic properties of phenacetin. Can you talk a bit more specifically about what that means for people that might be using those drugs or handling them for that matter?
All drugs are unsafe. All street drugs are unsafe, and they can be cut with anything. This is just one of the many ingredients that we see when we do a quantitative analysis of any drugs that we purchase or seize from the street. I couldn't talk specifically to the carcinogenic properties of this. However, I just rely on what I read on Google when it comes to cancer causing, and that's never a good thing.
Can you talk a little bit about the choice of phenacetin? Why phenacetin? What does it say to you instead of using something else more basic, household? Why are they using phenacetin, and what is it?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen different trends with regards to cutting agents. 10 years ago it was benzocaine, and so all of those other types of anesthetic numbing agents, which synthesize the effect of cocaine without the stimulant. But it's more expensive. So this is a cheaper option, and it makes for a very profitable margin for what they have as their occupation. This is what they want. They want most bang for their buck, and this is what they're getting with phenacetin.
From a CBSA perspective here, is this something that was brought in by ship to Vancouver, by flight to Vancouver? I mean, these are pretty obvious containers. I mean, how did this arrive in Vancouver?
It arrived through our mail center, so it came through one of the shippers, and it's being mailed to someone's home here in Calgary from Hong Kong. So it comes through the mail center, and all goods, all packages coming through the mail center are subject to inspection.
But I mean, this is coming through a cargo ship to the Port of Vancouver or something like that, or how does this?
You know, I don't have that information.
You don't have that?
No, I don't know that.
Are you seeing phenacetin? This is your first seizure, is that?
This is our first seizure, and it's significant for CBSA. 75 kilos last summer out of the two separate seizures. So this is significant for us too.
As far as you know, are both the stuff you seized 3 months ago and this stuff from Hong Kong? Originating in Hong Kong?
So ask the question again, sorry.
The stuff that was seized in the home, as well as the stuff CBSA previously seized in transit?
Yes.
As far as you know, are they both from Hong Kong?
I don't know. The stuff that CPS seized last week, I'm not sure where it originated from. I can speak to the barrels that we seized last summer, and they were from Hong Kong for sure.
And
Yeah.
just to have a clear picture and a nice clean clip, can you just run through the chronological order again in terms of these men were flagged to you, then what happened? Just if you could take us in the order of things since last summer.
Yeah, we were given information from the CBSA, provided information on seizures that they had made with regards to phenacetin, and these importations were still continuing. So we were employed by CBSA to create a file on these individuals and see what we could find. What we found was organized crime, and we found through our investigation multiple indications of being involved in organized crime. It was a 3-month investigation. We were able to secure warrants for residence and vehicle, and through that investigation we ended up creating a picture of their criminality and who they were organized and tied to, and all of that information will be shared with the proper authorities in the proper cities across Canada.
So Kenneth, because I'm a huge fan of border security, it actually is one of my favorite shows. Can you say, though, what they were masked as? Like, sometimes I've noticed that the barrels are labeled as obviously something else. They're not going to say, hey, these are drugs. So do you know what they were originally labeled as to try to divert detection?
I can't, because this is part of an ongoing investigation, I can't share those details with you. I can tell you that there was no concealment methods used. The substance was shipped in bags, in the barrels. And unfortunately I can't share the other details with
So
you. I'm
this
sorry.
was in January, though, so what clued you off? Was there anything about the barrels that...
Again, when people are importing any goods across our border, like when people are flying in, because I come from an airport setting, so when people are flying in, we start to use all of our basic interrogation or questioning techniques. And when the details of that story don't match up with what we think should be going on, it sparks a further investigation. And the same thing happens in our mail center, in our commercial operations as well. Goods are declared, and we start looking at the details of the declaration of the goods, who they're going to, all of those factors, and then we determine at that point whether or not we want to have a further investigation of the goods that are declared. And that's what happened in Vancouver. The officer that was inspecting these decided, based on the information they were provided, to have a further look and open the barrels, and that's what we found.
Yeah, keep
So
in
from the summer, these were noticed in July, and so you went through some testing to determine if it was fentanyl or not, correct? And then after getting your investigation, that's when you contacted the police. So would all 4 barrels then relate to the 2 accused?
We're still investigating the possibility that they're connected. Obviously, on the surface, it's easy to say they are, but in order to be diligent in our findings, we have to make sure that there's that connection. What we do know is that our standalone investigation from the information that was provided by CBSA led to the seizure not only of phenacetin, but cocaine, as well as a press to produce cocaine at a very large scale, indicating and showing and proving the organized criminality of this group. This is like I say, this is a great partnership with CBSA that Calgary Police Service has entered into.
I apologize, I'm just asking you to reiterate something you mentioned earlier, just that you expect this seizure to tie into further investigations down the road. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Throughout the 3 months, we investigated our targets, and we noticed connections with a lot of organized crime groups here in the city, as well as other cities across Canada. And those will be followed up, and they know who they are, and they will eventually be brought to task on their criminal activities.
Apologize if I missed this, but do you know these guys from before? Or?
We know them from different cities where they have been identified as criminals in different cities, not here in Calgary.
Is this used for particularly for crack cocaine or powder cocaine, or doesn't matter?
Powder cocaine to make to re-brick. When a pure brick of cocaine, kilogram of cocaine, gets imported into the city, to make it more profitable, they would take 1 brick of cocaine for 1 kilogram of cocaine for 1 kilogram of phenacetin, and then press it together with the item that we seized from the residents to make that $50,000 kilogram of cocaine, split it into 2. So you're making huge profit based on the drug that you see in front of you.
In a case like this, do you contact your overseas partners, I guess in this case Hong Kong, where they were shipped from, and discuss what you found here?
We haven't made any international inquiries for this.
When it comes to border services now, when you're dealing with this type of material and you're on high alert for fentanyl, you mentioned, are officers now being more cautious with the material they wear before they open something up? What process are you guys going through now?
We have implemented personal protection equipment in all of our facilities for all of our officers, that if there's any possibility they're going to come across substances that are dangerous like this, all officers are receiving the training. They have the PPE that they need to handle all of these kinds of goods to protect their health. Absolutely. This has been a very high profile project for us, or not a project, a very high profile initiative for us, going back to last summer when it started to rear itself and make itself known, and the dangers for our officers. We understand when this became high media profile last summer, that we have a responsibility to keep our officers safe, and if they're handling unknown quantities and unknown goods, we treat it at the highest risk level, or highest risk possible, to keep them safe, for sure.
Because in this case, when you said the officer opened up to have a closer look, he would have protected himself first? Or?
Yes. Yeah, they have all the personal protective equipment that they need. They're typically wearing before we open. Like we wear, I don't know if you see the officers on duty, they're wearing gloves. They have the protective equipment with them, but all officers are typically wearing gloves now when they're opening anything in a secondary exam.
Those specific amounts you mentioned before, the 1 kilo coke to 1 kilo phenacetin, is that actually the rate ratio they're using? They're literally going a 1-1 ratio?
Yeah, it is a common ratio that's being used for organized crime.
What type of charges can be against these two gentlemen? These are cutting agents, not actual drugs. Do they have the same weight as drugs?
It's not under the CDSA, which is typically what the Strategic Enforcement Unit uses in its arsenal for charging. It's an FDA charge, so it's a Food and Drug Act charge. Health inspector would come and actually lay those charges. Our enforcement and our warrant led us to actual CDSA charges of cocaine, as well as CC charges, criminal code charges, with regards to loaded handgun. They're minimum sentencing type things, so we're going to see some jail time for these individuals.
Any other questions?
Just a quick one, sorry. So CBSA obviously saw it in January, but it still got into Calgary because you had to go to the department and seize it. Why wasn't it just stopped there?
Okay, let me back up again. So last July, we seized 2 barrels, 25 kilos each. We seized them and we held them. So they didn't get shipped anywhere. CBSA held them, sent them to the lab for testing. We encountered a 3rd barrel in October and we seized it. But based on that information, we partnered with Calgary Police Services and they initiated an investigation, which resulted in the seizure of 4 more barrels,
And
which is a different
Right.
shipment of. Yeah.
So the originals were from Hong Kong. These ones were not.
We're talking-
Just to give you that indication.
We're talking about 7 barrels in total, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, thank you for clarifying on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you said that there was, when you said that their sole role really was in developing this cutting agent, are they handling coke at all, or are they packaging phenacetin and moving it along to be mixed elsewhere?
Well, because we did find cocaine and a cocaine press inside their residence, yeah, we believe that they were handling coke as well, and obviously we have the cocaine to prove that. We believe that they were also packaging phenacetin and distributing that to these other organized crime groups that we have identified through their activities. So it's win-win for the police.
Okay, here we go. Just one point of clarification, the 2 accused, one is a woman, one is a man.